There's a quiet force that kills more dreams than fear, more ambition than failure, more potential than rejection. It doesn't make noise, it doesn't raise alarms, it just sits beside you, like a friend. And every time you try to stand, it says, "Why bother?" It's called passivity, and it's been robbing people of their lives for centuries. The danger isn't that you wake up one day and realize you failed. The danger is that you wake up one day and realize you never even tried. You floated, you coasted, you watched days turn into months, turn into years, and the worst part is, you were awake the whole time. You just didn't move. And let's be honest, it's easy not to move. It's easy to stay in bed when the alarm rings, easy to scroll instead of speak, easy to say, maybe tomorrow, instead of, let's go. Because movement means risk. Action means discomfort. It means you might fail. It means people might talk. It means you might not get it right. And so you choose stillness, not because you're lazy, but because somewhere deep inside, you've convinced yourself that stillness is safer. You've been sold a lie that says staying still means staying safe. That hesitation is caution. That silence is wisdom. But that's the trick. That's the illusion. Passivity feels like protection, but it's really just paralysis dressed in comfort. Let's talk about the cost. Every time you pause when you should act, a version of your life dies. Not dramatically, quietly, like smoke fading from a blown-out candle. Think about the ideas you've had, the ones you felt in your gut, the stories you wanted to write, the projects you wanted to build, the conversations you knew you needed to have. Where are they now? Buried under someday, locked behind I'll do it when I'm ready, waiting at the door you never opened. Passivity is not peace. It's not still waters. It's a slow drowning in your own hesitation. Because here's the thing. Life is always moving. Time doesn't wait for clarity. Opportunities don't stand in line. Doors don't knock twice. So every time you say, "I'm not sure," "I'll wait," "I don't feel like it today," you're not preserving your life. You're delaying its meaning. There's a version of you that exists on the other side of action. And I promise, it's not a perfect version. They still fail. They still get scared. But they're in motion. They're alive. Because you don't discover who you are by sitting still. You don't find clarity by doing nothing. You find it in the doing, in the leap year, in the risk, in the hard, awkward, uncomfortable grind of trying, again and again. Most people aren't stuck because they're incapable. They're stuck because they're passive. They're waiting for a green light that's never coming. They're hoping for a perfect moment that doesn't exist. They're waiting to feel brave before they begin. But here's the secret. You don't need to feel brave. You need to move. Action first, emotion second. Courage doesn't lead the way. It follows movement. And let's be real, passivity will dress itself up like logic. It'll say, be smart. Think it through. But how long have you been thinking it through? How many journals, plans, spreadsheets, and research sessions have you gone through? And how many of them have turned into real-life momentum? You don't need another plan. You need to take one step, just one. Because momentum doesn't come from clarity, it comes from motion. Don't get me wrong, there's wisdom in rest. There's a sacred place for reflection. But reflection without action is just rumination. Rest without motion becomes avoidance. Silence without purpose becomes numbing. You don't need more sleep. You need more fire. And maybe you've been burned before. Maybe you tried once and it didn't work out. Maybe the world laughed. Maybe you lost money. Maybe you lost face. Maybe you even lost a piece of yourself. And so now, passivity feels safe. It feels like armor. But it's not armor. It's a coffin. A soft, padded, quiet coffin where dreams go to die unnoticed. You were made for impact, made to shake the ground beneath your feet, made to disrupt, to challenge, to build, to be felt. But you've been hiding behind the soft lies of inaction, telling yourself the timing isn't right, that you're not ready, that you need a sign. Here's your sign. You're still breathing. And that means you still have the power to move, to shift the trajectory, to break the chain. You can take the risk. You can write the book, start the business, speak the truth, rebuild the body, say what needs to be said. But you've got to stop waiting. No one is coming to save you from your own passivity. No mentor, no friend, no system, no savior. It's you. It's always been you. And yes, you'll be scared. Yes, you'll fail. Yes, people will misunderstand you. But so what? Every hero story begins with resistance. Every revolution begins with rejection. Every masterpiece begins with a messy, uncertain first draft. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to move. Because something powerful happens when you start showing up differently. You begin to feel your own life again. You begin to respect yourself. You begin to build integrity, not the kind others see, but the kind you feel when you're alone. That feeling, that quiet pride, when you go to bed knowing you moved today, that's where fulfillment lives. Not in trophies, not in applause, but in knowing you showed up when you could have stayed down. The only way to kill passivity is to disobey it. Not once, not with one grand gesture, but daily. Wake up and disobey the urge to stay small, to stay silent, to stay stuck. Replace maybe later with right now. Replace hesitation with action. Replace fear with movement. Because the future doesn't belong to the thinkers. It belongs to the doers. And you're not too late. You're not too far gone. You're not too old, too broken, too behind. You're right on time if you move now. So stop watching your life pass you by from the sidelines. Stop numbing yourself with distractions. Stop waiting to feel ready. You won't. But if you act, if you move, even with trembling hands, you'll wake something up inside you. Something ancient, something sacred, something that says, I am not here to be passive. I am here to live. So live, loud, messy, bold. Live like it matters. Because it does. Because you do. But you might wonder, why don't we change? Why do we sit in the same place with the same regrets, the same fears, the same patterns? Because passivity is seductive. It whispers lies with a velvet voice. It tells you, just wait. Maybe things will get better. It convinces you that taking risks is foolish, that staying safe is wise. And so, you keep shrinking yourself. You water down your dreams. You smile politely while your soul quietly withers, and the world rewards it. People pat you on the back for being realistic, for knowing your limits. They'll celebrate your conformity because it makes them feel more comfortable in their own cages. But here's the truth they won't tell you. The longer you delay your becoming, the harder it is to begin. The more you tolerate the dull ache of existing beneath your potential, the more numb you become to your own suffering. You start confusing comfort for peace, stillness for satisfaction. But comfort without meaning is just a slow death. There comes a moment when you have to ask yourself the hard question, what the hell am I doing with my life? Not in a self-pitying tone, not in despair, but in rage, in defiance, in burning clarity. Because if you don't demand more from yourself, no one else will. Look around. How many people do you know living out someone else's dream? How many have surrendered their fire for the illusion of stability? How many live in quiet agony, too afraid to admit they want more? That cannot be you. You weren't made to blend in. You weren't born to be a background character in your own story. You were created with the capacity to destroy limitations, yours and others, to shake the foundations of your generation. But you can't do any of that if you're always waiting for permission. You must break the habit of hesitation, the habit of shrinking, the habit of waiting for ideal conditions. Conditions will never be perfect. People will never fully understand you. Fear will never disappear. Do it anyway. Take the leap. Speak up, even if your voice trembles. Walk out, even if your knees are weak. Begin the work, even if your hands shake. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of it. And no one can give you that. No mentor, no parent, no partner. It must rise from within. That raw, unfiltered decision to take yourself seriously. To no longer wait for life to start, but to start it yourself. And when you do, you begin to shift reality. You stop being a pawn and become a player. You stop following the script and start writing your own. But let's get honest. Radical responsibility doesn't come without pain. It means confronting every excuse you've ever made. It means holding yourself accountable for the relationships you allowed, the standards you lowered, the time you wasted. That hurts. It's far easier to say, they hurt me. They didn't support me. Life was unfair. And maybe all of that is true. But here's what's more true. You stayed. You tolerated it. You told yourself you couldn't do better. You allowed yourself to become small. And that's the bitter pill. You weren't just a victim. You were an accomplice to your own imprisonment. But there's power in owning that. Because the moment you say, "This was on me," is the moment you take back the power to say, "And I can change it." You become the storm, not the leaf being blown around, but the wind that moves everything in its path. And yes, people will push back. They'll call you arrogant, dramatic, unreasonable. Good. Be unreasonable. Reasonable people accept average. They settle. They adapt to a world that was never meant to contain them. But the unreasonable ones, they create new worlds. They build businesses from scratch. They rise from childhood trauma to become powerful leaders. They walk away from toxic circles, even if it means walking alone. They set standards so high that mediocrity can't breathe around them. Be that person. And if you're not there yet, train. Train like your life depends on it. Because it does. Train your mind to fight its lazy instincts. Train your habits until excellence becomes your default. Train your voice to speak truth, even in uncomfortable rooms. Train your spirit to stand tall in chaos. Because nothing changes until you do. Not the economy, not your circle, not your past, you. And that's where we fall short. We wait for external change before we make internal shifts. But your external reality is just a mirror of your internal identity. If you see yourself as a passive bystander, life will treat you like one. If you decide you're a powerful force for change, life will reflect that back to you. It's not magic, it's alignment. And alignment begins with decisions, not feelings, not wishes, decisions. What are you tolerating that needs to end? Who are you pretending to be just to stay liked? What fire inside you have you been dimming because it made others uncomfortable? Today isn't just another Tuesday or Friday or whatever day it is. It could be the day everything shifts, the day you choose to become, to stop reacting and start building, to stop complaining and start moving, to stop waiting and start living. You want joy? Build it. You want confidence? Earn it. You want love? Become someone worthy of deep, soul-level love. All of it starts with a single, terrifying, liberating truth. No one is coming to save you. And that is the best news ever. Because it means you don't have to wait. You don't have to beg. You don't need their approval. You are enough to begin now, with your flaws, your fears, your scars. Begin messy, begin shaky, begin uncertain. But begin. And don't stop. No matter who doubts you, no matter how slow the progress feels, or no matter how many times you fail. Because every step forward chips away at the version of you that chose safety over significance. And over time, you'll look back and see how far you've come. Not just in achievements, but in identity. You'll realize you're no longer the person who tolerates nonsense. You're no longer the person who apologizes for dreaming. You're no longer the one who says, maybe someday. You've become the one who says, why not now? And that's when the game changes.